Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 224 of the J Situation Podcast. I'm recording this on August 13th, 2024. Well, good morning or good evening if you're listening early. If you're in the middle of the night, like some of you hardcore listeners are, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying cool. It's been extremely hot, so hopefully your shooting sessions have been brisk and refreshing with plenty of frosty drinks in the cooler. I wish that for all of you. And boy, oh boy, have we been busy doing field testing this entire year. And we're deep into the third quarter now. We continue to have some cool things to show you. Very excited about that. I do want you to know that there are a lot of things coming. Some are on deck, some are delayed, not because of our choice, but because of various factors. And so some things that will trickle in throughout this quarter and the next are doing so as time allows, and with all the different factors that are involved with them. So if you've been patiently waiting for that special silencer data that you really want to see, sincerely thank you for your patience as we move through the publications and we navigate all of this as efficiently as we can. Okay, so today, actually, you're going to see something interesting that many people may not be aware of, something from Gemtech. That's right. Gemtech came to us to evaluate some of their silencer systems, and today we are presenting our study on their Neutron 7.62. Yeah, that's published with today's podcast episode, and we'll be hitting the introductory discussion to that article in topic 1. Then next up, one of my favorite things to do, we're going to hit listener questions. Yeah, that's right. So the 7th solicitation was conducted recently, in which we, solicited questions from you folks, the audience, and that was filled up very quickly. We have some hot and fresh questions from you folks, just waiting for some detailed answers. We kind of, at least cataloged the first little bit of them, and we're going to get to those today as well in topic 2. So it should be cool. So if you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. We're glad to have you. And there are timestamps in the episode description for you to skip to, whenever or wherever you like. But if you want to hang around with me a little while longer after this intro, I'm going to speak to you about the companies who make this podcast possible. I don't know if you know this, but it takes time to do this, and these companies help with that. Because as always, the J Situation Podcast is proudly sponsored by Legion Athletics, man, and even through injuries and time commitments, enabling gym time to be relatively sporadic, I find the supplements that I get from Legion to be pretty on point. And I tell you guys this every time, nothing you do, whether it's exercise, sports, anything, technical writing and silencer testing, nothing you do is worth doing without consistency. If you want to be really exceptional at an activity in your life, you pretty much have to do it all the time. You got to sharpen those chops, right? And Legion Athletics can help with that. They really can. You're going to need support. They have whey protein, pre-workout, post-workout, creatine, vitamins, minerals, all kinds of supplementation. Maybe you're not getting everything you need from food. Maybe you need some little bit of help. I know I do. And so if you visit legionathletics.com, there's a link in the show notes to do so. And use code word PewScience to save 20% off of your first order, which I find to be extremely cool, because you can end up spending a lot of money on supplements. And you know what? You might even continue to buy them. And if you do that and you keep using the code word PewScience, you'll save 10% off everything going forward using points. That's right. You can bank them and then use those points as cash. It's pretty cool. So get strong. It's important. Legion Athletics has been with the podcast for a while now, and they're really data-driven. They're really data-driven people. So when you go to their website at legionathletics.com and you look at the different supplements, you'll see that they have supporting evidence of efficacy of the different ingredients. It's, if you're in a sport that is drug tested, for example, you don't need to worry about popping hot from something you take from Legion, for example. Okay, I'm just kind of giving you, this is a little bit of a cut above. Okay, this isn't like, JoeBobSupplementCheck.com. You know what I mean? So that should give you some comfort for all you competitive athletes out there. I know some of you are listening because I used to be one. Also, This episode is proudly sponsored by Silencer Shop. That's right. They've done a lot, not only for consumers in the industry, but for tons of dealers, large and small, nationwide. If you're let's say you're a new silencer dealer and you're looking to get started in the space, and maybe you can't hold a lot of inventory. Maybe you want to maintain some low overhead. Silencer Shop might be able to help you out with that. You can use their kiosk. You can do your fingerprints and photos electronically. You cut down on errors. You simplify your silencer purchasing process. You get a money-back guarantee. It's pretty good, guys. The ecosystem they've built is fantastic. You don't pay any transfer fees. You don't have any paperwork errors. It's just you and your silencer with no drama. It truly is silencer ownership simplified. So we're very grateful for Silencer Shop's support of this effort for many years. This podcast is also sponsored by Top Gun Range Houston. And by the way, all the sponsors offer something different to you guys. Okay, this is very important. And if you just pay attention to this, you're gonna have a good time. I am telling you, Houston is a big place. Texas is a big place. If you are in the Houston area, I know a lot of you folks have business in Houston. I know I do. Okay, you're gonna have to fly through there. You might be there for maybe a couple of days. Maybe you're just there for an afternoon. But guess what? If you're just visiting Houston, dude, Google Top Gun Range. 15-lane indoor shooting range, right? Largest firearm rental fleet in the entire state of Texas. You can rent pistols and rifles and shotguns, machine guns. You can rent silencers. You can put the silencers onto the Pew Science test hosts. You can shoot them at their range. You can check out their firearm rental inventory at their website at topgunrange.com. You can also find them on Instagram at Top Gun Range, which is pretty wild. Kyle, who runs that account, he loves to talk to you at all hours of the night. He's pretty based, so go check him out at topgunrange.com. Also, and this is exciting for me, it's no secret that silencers are in high demand right now. You know that, right? Well, at least at the current time, approval times are going pretty quickly. It's actually pretty ludicrous. If you're new to silencers, you might not understand how crazy it is. But the demand and the approval times moving so fast combined mean that you as a consumer do need options. Sometimes you just need different places to buy and different ways to buy. And did you know that Capital Armory is here to help with that? That's right. The podcast is brought to you by Capital Armory, and they have a pretty unique twist on the whole thing. Not only do they have a large selection of silencers and they help you with the painful paperwork, they can ship your silencer directly to you. Like if you don't have time to go to a gun store no matter what, just because maybe you're working nights, you have to sleep during the day. It happens, dude. Been there. Trust. Okay? Imagine getting the silencer shipped directly to your door. That's right. If you live in one of the 42 states where silencers are legal, you can order a silencer in your living room and have it shipped directly to the same living room. It's nuts. Yeah, it really is that easy. Capital Armory. Silencer shipped directly to your door. And finally, the podcast is brought to you by the Pew Science Laboratory. We've been hard at work this year for you guys. Really excited about it. I'm the technical director of the lab. In the interest of public education, we sponsor this podcast directly, and we run a public research effort, and it's all cataloged. It's all cataloged publicly, and it continues to push the silencer industry forward one test at a time. You can visit pewscience.com for the suppression rating. It's a public metric that we created. It is the simplest and most accurate hearing-safe rating for your suppressed small arms. It's based on true human inner ear response of the entire gunshot from before the combustion takes place all the way until all the combustion is gone out of the weapon system and the mechanical operation has ceased. It's very thorough. Pew Science is the home of the silencer sound standard. There's 7 sections. It's the most in-depth and accurate silencer data analysis in the entire world. We created it to be that purposefully. And it's all available to the public 24/7 at pewscience.com. And all this stuff that I'm telling you about, all this podcast that we do every week, the lab, Pew Science, all the public testing, you can support all of this yourself by joining with a membership at pewscience.com. It would mean the world. It would help a lot. There's a donate feature on the website if you don't want to give a recurring payment. That's fine. You can do a one-time donation if you like. And you know what? If you don't want to give monetarily, you don't have to. You can just spread the word. Do the like and subscribe on the YouTubes or the Instagrams, the Spotify, the wherever you get this podcast, spread the word. Tell your friends. Tell your wife. Tell your kids. Let folks know that silencers and guns are awesome. We'll normalize the use of suppressed small arms. It'll be great. Okay. And so the two topics that I mentioned in the intro today, topic one will be Sound Signature Review 6158. That's the Gemtech Neutron 7.62 on 308 bolt action. A lot of folks have used Gemtech silencers for many years. Okay, some of you new folks might not know that, but Gemtech has been around. So the question is, well, how does some of their newer technology perform when compared to the large 308 performance pedigree in the standard? And we have a lot of 308 data, right? So this is going to be the introductory topic for that white paper published concurrently with this episode. So stick around, we'll talk about that. And then topic two, like I said, listener questions are back. This is going to be the 7th solicitation. We have a lot of great ones from you folks. Okay, so we're going to take a stab at starting to answer them today. Okay, so let's kick this off at a time of 10 minutes and 45 seconds. And that is probably one of the longest intros I've ever done. But hey, I'm not going to apologize because frankly, the companies that make this podcast possible, it's either I tell you about them in the beginning or I interrupt the podcast in the middle to talk about them. Okay, I'm going to tell you about them. So, we do consider feedback. We do. And we have listened to the feedback about ads. And I continue to think they are in the best format right now. Okay. And so again, you can skip directly to this. If you're joining us and you just tuned in because you skipped the timestamp for this topic one, congratulations. You use the timestamps appropriately. You get an A+. If you didn't, and you thought the intro was too long, well, use the timestamp next time, okay? So goodness gracious, man, this is interesting, and this is actually exciting for me. First of all, I just want to say, what an honor. This type of stuff seems to keep happening, which means we must be doing something right. I pinch myself. I can't believe this is real, and I love it. For the record, I want to say, I did not picture having a company like Gemtech as a client when this ever first started. I never in a million years thought we'd have companies like this working with us, but they are, and I'm super honored. The legacy of the Gemtech name is not lost on me. So up front, thanks to Smith & Wesson for trusting our laboratory to perform this work. Smith & Wesson owns the Gemtech brand. So some of you know that, some of you don't. That's a relatively new thing in silencer history. It's not new in recent years, but it's been like that for quite a long time now. But for you old school guys out there, you might not know. Because you might be thinking of Gemtech's association with like AWC back in the day, right? And some of you don't even know who AWC is, and that's a problem too. Okay, so but hey, as we move through this, you'll learn a thing or two about a thing or two, and the great thing is that Gemtech is making silencers now. They're new, and we're going to talk about that today. And the Neutron 7.62 is one of those newer rifle silencers from Gemtech. There are two newer model lines, the Neutron and the Abyss from Gemtech. We've been testing a few of these models at the lab, and so the article we're publishing today centers on the Neutron 7.62, specifically the performance on bolt action 308. And so this rifle silencer, and I do have it in front of me right here, kind of somewhat taken apart. It has some characteristics that are interesting, at least to me. I think to some of you as well. So for one, it's tubeless. So it's a little bit lighter than you would typically see from some of these types of silencers. It does have a removable end cap, and the end cap is actually fairly complex. It's not. This is actually one of the most. And it's a strange thing to say, but it's one of the most complex removable end cap assemblies that I've ever seen. Not necessarily in its machining or something. I'm not talking about the complexity of how they made it. I'm talking about the complexity of the physics it uses to function. And one of the interesting things about, and I think I'm reading on it, they call it the GM-S1 system end cap. One thing that's interesting is the way they've engineered the flash reduction of the silencer. And so I want to preface this first by saying I have not been doing night shooting with this silencer yet. Okay, I have not. However, I can see the way they've chosen to tackle flash, and it's quite interesting. There's actually a flanged protrusion and taper seal on the bore orifice for the end cap here, and there are ports that allow gas jets to disperse through the field radially. Now, I know these words are fancy, and this is not the technical talk. This is just the intro. What I want to tell you here is, yes, they're venting some flow. Yes, sure. But it's not like a vented end cap you might see on, how some rifle silencers, they'll have a solid end cap with a main bore orifice, and then they'll take another end cap just with some holes in it, and they'll change it out and be like, oh, now I'm vented. And depending on the way the silencer is constructed, those vents may or may not change performance in a positive or negative way. It just depends, right? This is really not a flow rate based design, though it probably does influence flow rate a little bit. I mean, yeah, I know it does change the distal flow rate a little bit. It's really not so much, when you look at it, it's really not so much purposeful for that in my opinion. I'm not the engineer, but in my opinion, I don't think it's that. What I think is what's really interesting here is that they seem to be purposely jetting flow across the main jet. And what this looked like to me when I examined it was someone was trying to disrupt the shock boundaries to prevent secondary ignition. That's what I was seeing here. To me, it looked like someone was trying to kill flash mechanically outside of the silencer. That's what I was seeing when I unscrewed the end cap, which the silencer comes with a tool to do so. When I unscrewed the end cap and looked at it, that's the impression I got from assessing the design just by looking at it. It wasn't until later till I Googled it. So yesterday what I did when I was looking at this, and after I tested it and all that stuff, and I had looked at this early, whenever it was when we got them in, I called Gemtech because me, I'm just going to call, I called Gem and I asked them, hey, is that what those geometric ports were for? And they indicated yes, it was a flash killing mechanism. I said, okay, great. My suspicions were correct. I thought that was cool. So hey, how about that? How about that? When you look at the geometry in a silencer component, and you make a postulation about what it's for, and then knowing what we know about all the performance-based testing we've done over the years, why would they do something like that? When I was looking at it, and then sure enough, with them talking about and then confirming it, I was like, well, that's just swell. That's great. I'm happy that all is right in the world, and that logically it made sense to me. So I felt that was a win, just for good. That's good. And I think, I think it's cool, but I love to see new and interesting ways to kill flash. I really do like seeing that. And I'm not sure some people understand really how flash hiders work, but we've talked about it. I think actually we've spoken about this a couple of episodes ago, or maybe on a recent episode, but killing flash from a bare muzzle is pretty straightforward, right? Just from a bare muzzle. Now, killing flash from a silencer is a little harder, right? One second. Excuse me. Yeah, killing flash from the end of a silencer is a little harder. And that might be counterintuitive to some of you, right? You might think, oh man, surely a silencer is just a flash hider too. That's not necessarily true. The reason why it's easier to kill flash from a bare, unsuppressed muzzle than it is from a silencer is because that we generally understand the flow and the flow field out of a bare muzzle. And a lot of folks do not understand the distal flow out of the end of a silencer. Once you understand the flow field out of whatever distal orifice is jetting hot gas to atmosphere out of your smaller weapon system. Once you understand the distal flow, you'll be able to manage the secondary ignition, and it's that secondary ignition that creates flash. Okay. And once you understand the distal flow out of that silencer, whatever silencer it is, you'll be able to manage it in a similar fashion to how you manage it from a bare muzzle. And understanding the flow field is key for that. Like a three-prong flash, you understand that folks have used three-prong flash hiders on bare muzzles for quite some time, and the flash produced, or the flash signature resulting from the use of a really well-engineered three-prong flash hider, is very minimal, to the point that it can sometimes be, or many times be, much less intense than someone using a silencer. That's how good a good flash hider can suppress flash. And it's really preventing unburnt particulates from coming in contact with flow boundaries that trip to a high temperature gradient and cause secondary ignition. Okay, there are boundary layers that have extreme temperature gradients across them, and the three-prong flash hider will disrupt that boundary and not let the flow field have particulates converge across them, and that's how those work. And when you have a silencer, though, if you don't understand the flow field, how would you possibly manage it to make the same thing happen? And so it looks like, to me, that's what Gemtech has done here with this system. And again, they call it, and just before I started recording this, I actually looked at the engraving on the thing, and it says GM-S1. I said, oh, and then I Googled it. Sure enough, there was some marketing language that said, oh, and it kills flash it reduces flash from the first shot to the last. And I looked at it in my hand, and I said, it probably does. Because the way it's doing it, I would expect it to do from the first shot to the last, because it's doing it every time. It doesn't require some other things to happen, because it's a mechanical flash. It's a mechanical flash reduction. 1 second. Sorry. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. So let's move on now. So it brings me to another interesting tidbit about the silencer, and I know I'm talking all about the flash hider. It's cool. I've just never seen it like that before, and it brings me to another interesting tidbit. So we're examining the data, right, and we noticed a little bit of parallels with some other data in the pedigree, but at the same time, some notable differences, and that caused me to look into the silencer with a borescope. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't need to. Sometimes I do. So I looked into it. I looked at some cutaways, all that stuff, and I wanted to know exactly what was happening here. Something was kind of nagging at me. I was like, "What is that?" And sure enough, what I saw is that it sort of behaves a little bit like a Nomad baffle geometry from Dead Air in a way, a little bit. It's not the same. It's definitely not the same. And when you look at the baffle geometry in the Neutron, it is actually not the same as a Nomad baffle, but there are some commonalities. And then, therefore, by default, there are some commonalities with some other silencers designs too, like Hyperion stuff, like earlier coaxial baffles from other designers. Because remember, the Nomad wasn't novel, right? We know this in the pedigree. It was not a novel design. It was an evolution of many that came before it, and it kind of grabbed bits and pieces in some ways, just like a lot of other silencer designs do. I'm not saying it's a negative thing. I'm just telling it like it is. And long story short, in the Neutron 7.62, there's annular utilization, and we see some things in the data that are very interesting with regard to pressurization of the silencer, depressurization, and the signatures that it produces. And we're looking at some of that, and we're going to get into that next week during the technical talk. I just thought it was really interesting. So I wanted to kind of just bring it up now to have you looking at it. And right now, I do want to let you know that the silencer is performing pretty well for its design envelope on the platform. I do think that. It's a little smaller diameter than some other 7.62 silencers, and it's shorter and lighter than some others too. So it's interesting to see what Gemtech was able to do here in this package. I find it to be, I was like, interesting. I wasn't sure how this type of design would perform, so I learned something during the research program, and I hope you guys will too. And when you look at the article, you'll also notice some interesting things about the flow field and the momentum transfer from the silencer. And you have an omega metric here that's actually fairly low for this type of design. So that's pretty interesting. One of the things that might be driving that is the flash mitigation array, like I was talking about before, at the distal end. Because yes, as you know, when you do any porting at the distal end of a silencer, you will by default increase the rate of momentum transfer potential out of the silencer. And so that will directly influence omega metric computation and sound field. 1 second. I apologize. I keep having to drink water. I have a frog in my throat. I had a lot of meetings today, so I've been talking all day. My voice is going. So one thing that we continue to see in the 308 data set in all these tests is the power of contextual comparison, right? Contextual comparison. And I think we have over 50, probably 51, 52, 53 individual tests on the M80 ball ammo 7.62 by 51 NATO 20-inch barrel platform. I think we're up to like 52 or 53 tests now, right? So you have a very robust apples to apples data set with millions of data points. Okay, you literally have millions of data points here that are really summarizing what you can and can't expect from some of the technologies. Like you really need to start to pay attention, in my opinion, if you're really deep into this, what you can and can't expect from some technologies. And I think the Neutron is falling in a range where a lot of people are, they're shopping for silencers, and I think they're looking to land here. I think it's falling in that range simply based on the size, the weight, and the performance. Like, for example, typically when folks look to purchase a silencer for use on a 308 bolt gun for deer hunting, this is for an example, maybe they want something relatively small and light. They usually, in my experience and what I've seen, they usually want to have a suppression rating on the platform at the shooter's ear that's getting above 35, maybe close to 40, in that zone, in that range. You know what I mean? At a minimum, I think that's really what a lot of people are seeing that they want once they start really shooting silencers and hunting suppressed and stuff. I know that for me personally, that's kind of where I want to be at minimum for a hunting silencer in my experience. And I've talked about that in the past in great detail. The Neutron 7.62, in accordance with our testing and analysis, is falling in that range. And I think that's a good place to be for a lot of people. That's my opinion. Okay, that's just my opinion. So go check out the article. This thing is hub compatible. Forgot to tell you that. That's actually something interesting. And that actually brings me to a very important point. This is very important, and this was purposeful. So we tested this with the standard direct thread mount. Okay, we did not use the Gemtech quick detach mount that you can get with these silencers. You can actually, I was told that they're sold with that mount, but also perhaps sold without the mounts. I think there might be a price difference. You have to contact Gemtech to talk about that with them. But so with I want to say the configuration we tested, let me see here, with the direct thread mount is, I want to say 7 inches long. Is that true? Around 7 inches long or so. I'll double check that before the article goes out. And then, because without the mount in it, I believe the silencer itself, the hub version here, and they're all hub mount compatible, it's a little over 6.5 inches long. Okay. So I think now if you were to add the Gemtech mount, not the direct thread mount, a direct thread mount that we used, which I believe is a Reardon or something, that came with like an Otter Creek silencer that we tested. A standard direct thread mount. I think with the Gemtech mount that you can purchase, and we'll go into that in detail in the technical talk, or you can buy that separately, or you can buy it with the silencer. I think you're adding some more length than just the direct thread. So that's going to be a little longer. But then you have that QD capability with a muzzle device. So, it's one of those give and take things with this type of system. And I believe it's their ETA, their Elite Taper Mount. I believe it's what the Gemtech mount is called. So when you look at the article, and I'm telling you all this because when you look at the article, keep in mind that the distal flow and the suppression here is indicative of pure behavior. Okay, when I said this is purposeful, it's like it was actually discussed. Let's look at the pure combustion. Okay, let's do a pure combustion jet into the first expansion chamber. Now the blast baffle does have some porting, so that it's something you should know. That is interesting. And going back to what I said earlier about some similarities to the Nomad type baffles, the angles in the Neutron are much steeper. The porting's different. It's a much different ballgame, really. So with regard to blast load reflection specifically and angle of incidence. So that's technically a mechanical difference that is important to understand. But again, we're getting a little technical here. So I'm going to cut it there because this is not meant to be a technical talk today. We're going to pick up again on it next week. Okay, with the technical discussion on the next episode, and we'll do a deep dive per typical. So for now, check out the article on the website. I hope you find it informative. I know many people actually, independent of Gemtech coming to us for this project, a lot of people have been interested in the new Gemtech stuff. I've seen it. They're like, I wonder what Gemtech's up to. Well, now you know what they're up to. Okay, so. Again, I hope you find it informative. Again, big thanks to Gemtech for trusting us to characterize the performance of their silencers and present it to the public. It is an honor. I'm happy to be here. Okay, happy to be here, guys. So that's all for that topic today. Please go check out the article, and now we'll move into topic 2 at a time of 32 minutes and 57 seconds. Okay. Awesome. So topic 2, listener questions. They're back. They're back with a vengeance. No, not with a vengeance, with curiosity and splendor. No, welcome to the 7th solicitation. Sunday. Wednesday. We got a lot of great questions, as we always do, from you exceptional, intelligent, curious, motivated listeners. And so we're going to take a stab at starting to answer them today. I love this. It's literally one of my favorite times. I love it so much. This is actually one of my favorite things to do, not only on the podcast, but in general. It's one of my favorite things to do is to help answer people's questions. I love it. It's like, I don't know, it brings me joy, dude. I don't know. Some people like backgammon. Like I like answering questions. I don't know. I always have. It's cool. So I'm glad we were able to work in a solicitation for you folks recently. Response was great. We're going to open our infamous spreadsheet. Yeah. Oh, Microsoft Excel. I both love you and hate you. People are like, same, bro. Samesies. No, dude, it is like, when you look at have you ever thought about how long you've spent in front of Microsoft Excel? I don't know if some of you are old enough to remember. You remember Lotus 123? Before Microsoft really, Microsoft had a grip, but of course, with when MS-DOS came out, it was like, what? But remember what Lotus Notes and Lotus 123, before Excel was super Excel-tastic, and there was that, thrust of like, oh yeah, I'm totally gonna use Lotus software. And then remember like WordPerfect? And I was like, yo, and I remember at school, like some kid I knew had like, his parents had like a Gateway 2000 computer, and he like used WordPerfect. You remember Gateway 2000, like the mascots? It was almost like the Chick-fil-A cows, but for computers. So this dude, like, his parents were probably loaded, right? So he had this awesome computer. He had WordPerfect because like he's way too cool for Microsoft Word. And I kind of looked at him like, bro, why are you using WordPerfect? Like no one uses that. And he was like super offended about it. Now look at him. People use like Google Docs. Hats off to you guys for coming through. I think there's some humdinger questions in here. Let's kick it off. 1 second. I don't like how he doesn't stay on topic. He's weird. I thought this was about silencers. So if you're new to listener questions, remember, there's a listener question metadata tag at pewscience.com/podcast with every episode that contains a listener question. So if you have a desire to go back into the listener question archives, click that metadata tag, which will be with this published episode. It's going to pull up every single episode we've done. And the reason I'm telling you that is because guess what? The first question we're going to start off with in Solicitation 7 today is question number 503. Local question number 1. That's right. And the question is, once again, asking for spectrograms of the data, even if just for members. I remember transcribing this and like doing like the bruh meme where it's like, oh, bruh. No, just kidding, dude. I don't mean that. I know who asked this. I know you've asked about this before, sir. I do. So thank you for asking the question publicly. I will answer you. So the question is, if I just glossed over it, this gentleman is asking for spectrograms of the raw data that we present at pewscience.com. Let me explain what he's specifically asking for technically. Some people might not understand what that means. What he's asking for is, okay, so let me say this let me explain something. Let me go about this a different way. This gentleman is asked, okay, so on the website, in our articles, we present the principal piece of information, the raw data that we present to you is blast overpressure in the free field expressed in the time domain. The domain is the group of units on the horizontal axis of each plot. As you step horizontally from left to right on the plots, you're marching through time. You're in the time domain. So the overpressure, the blast overpressure in the free field is varying with time. Got it? Cool. What this gentleman wants to know, he's like, yeah, that's all cool, Jay. Awesome. I understand. Awesome. What he wants to do, instead of marching through the time domain, he wants to march through the frequency domain. Yeah. So what he wants to do is he still wants to see pressure amplitude, right? Just like you've all been seeing, but he doesn't want to see it over time. He wants to see it over frequency. How would you do that? Well, there are mathematical ways to jump to that space, just like there are mathematical transforms to jump to a lot of different domains. Okay? So I hope that's answered what he wants. Now, here is my response. We could do that to you. Wow, that sounds aggressive. We could do that for you. We could do this to you. We could FFT you. Oh my God, he's going to FFT me. Don't FFT me, bro. Don't tase me, bro. A fast Fourier transform. It's a nerd. This is going to get high math in a second here. I'm trying to keep this accessible for non-engineers. Sir, it would be much more useful, in my opinion, instead of what you're asking. It would be much more useful for you to examine inner irresponse in the frequency domain. Okay? I do believe that looking at frequency content is great. I applaud you for your inquisitiveness and your curiosity. It's no secret that I'm all about hopping domains from time domain to frequency domain. I'm all about it. I always have been. But just like examining amplitudes in the public articles of pressure and impulse in the time domain, like you're doing right now, just like when you do that, you know what I'm a big fan of? Looking at actual inner ear response in the frequency domain, instead of raw overpressure amplitude in the frequency domain. Why? Because the response amplitude is going to show you how you're actually going to hear stuff. Okay? Caveat, if your ears are close to the 90th to 95th percentile human ear, if you're in the free field, caveated with those qualifiers, the inner ear response in the frequency domain, that's going to tell you some really, really actionable information. And guess what? You're in luck, sir, because that's literally what we have published in our member research supplements, which, by the way, we do definitely need to ramp up again. We haven't done those in a bit. We've been so busy with testing and stuff. We need to get on that. Thanks for the reminder. It's actually a good reminder for this. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that answered your question or concern satisfactorily. And I hope that all of you listening have a better understanding of what he asked and probably why he asked. You understand the thrust of this is he wants to know, well, I want to know. Sir, I'm not making fun of you. I'm just like pretending I'm you. I don't know how you sound when you talk, but I'm assuming you're like, well, I want to know if it has a deep tone or a sharp tone okay. Well, if I show you pressure amplitude in the frequency domain, I don't know what you're going to do with it. Because in my technical opinion, I really think you need response output to map meaningful quantities in the frequency domain. I think you need response output. I don't think you need amplitude, a load amplitude input. What are you going to do with it? That's my thoughts on that, sir. I think we might have a technical disagreement, and I'm fine with having a disagreement with you. And I'm happy to discuss it further. You can always email me at tech.computerscience.com, and I'll be happy to tell you. But I do encourage you to go to the member research supplements if you're looking for frequency domain content, because I think you'll be pleasantly surprised and elated. Thank you for the question. Global question 504, local question 2. How complex do you feel the new internals of 3D printed suppressors will be? How complex do I feel they will be? I mean, it's a good question. Thank you for that question. I think, I'm going to look at my crystal ball. No. I think that they're going to get as complex as folks think they need to get. I think they're going to get as complex as folks think they need to be to accomplish what they need to accomplish. That's what I think. Now remember, making things complex for no reason is generally a waste of time and energy. Okay, we call that art, right? And I did not say that art is a waste of time and energy. I love art. I love music. I love subjective, pretty things. Awesome. The point I'm trying to get across is there are purposeful design methods that may result in some complexities. And from the perspective of folks that only deal in traditional manufacturing technologies, they might seem exotic or complex. And sometimes needlessly complex. When in fact, it might be that the design is purposefully engineered to do something, and just because you think it's complicated for no reason doesn't mean there's not a reason. Okay, just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's frivolous. Okay, I do want to make that point because I just get the impression sometimes people think things are frivolous for no reason. And I'm not saying there aren't frivolous design features in silencers, or can't be. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is I know for a fact there are purposefully complex designs. I know that. Okay, and I think a lot of you know that too. How long have we been doing this, guys? 5 years now, 4 or 5 years now. I think we're come on, we're all friends here. Love this or hate this. I think we can all agree that some of these designs that are complex are purposefully complex for function. Now, Again, another caveat. Make no mistake, there are some very complicated silencers that are manufactured with traditional machining. There are. I've seen them. We've tested them. We've looked inside them. Some of them are absolutely nuts. I can tell you, there are some things that are just really hard to do without printing. And just like on that side of it, I think the market at large has seen that stuff too. So, if you want to look at some practical examples here, man, look what Huxworks was able to do when they jumped to printing from the traditionally manufactured HXQD series. Look what they were able to do. Look at the performance. It speaks for itself. Okay, again, love it or hate it, I don't care. But look at the change. They were able to do more complex things. They were able to chase their idea further. Look what CAT is able to do. Look, Combat Application Technology. Look what they've been able to do. Look what PTR is able to do, guys. And these are just three examples. Three unrelated companies. Guys, this is getting really complex, and there's a lot more work to be done. I think the arms race is accelerating. I think consumers are getting a ton of options. I think some of the silencers of the past couple of years are absolutely bonkers. I mean, compared to what we've seen in the past 10 years, probably. I think they're bonkers. I think it's moving faster than you would think. I'm here for it. It is. And I think if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably on the cutting edge of silencers. I really think the audience of this podcast in general and the readers of Pew Science, they are on the cutting edge of silencer performance understanding. There is nowhere else that's doing it this deeply. So this question, I think, is important, and I think a lot of you probably have it. So, sir, I know who asked this, so thank you for asking it. Okay, 1 second. Okay. All right. Question 505, local question number 3. Do you think silencer mounts will continue to be a thing? Do I think silencer mounts will continue to be a thing? Silencer mounts, well, Well, you know what? It's actually an excellent question, because I guess I'm trying to like frame this from how you're, where you're coming from, sir or ma'am. No, it's a sir. I know who asked this. I'm gonna say the answer is yes, and my answer is yes because of some hard truths. Maybe you're not. Maybe you'll like these truths. Maybe you won't. Some of you, but here's some truths. So one thing is that I was thinking. So first of all, the AR-15 is real. We all agree it's real. It's not a figment of our imagination. The AR-15 is real, and folks like to have the option to shoot it without a silencer. Yes? Yes? Okay. Now, I know it seems dumb for a silencer nerd, but for a lot of people, they want their AR with a flash hider on it or something, and they want the option to quick attach and detach the silencer. I get it. I know. It's weird. Because if you're going to shoot it without a silencer, you're going to have to re-zero your gun, or you're going to have 2 zeros on your optic or something. If you're going to shoot your gun unsuppressed and suppressed, you have to have 2 zeros. It is rare. It can happen, but especially on an AR, dude, it is rare, super rare that you're not going to have to re-zero your gun. Okay? That's one. So that's a hard truth to understand. But nonetheless, people love those things. Second thing, QD in general, it's a preference for storage and transport. And you know what? On this one, I'm going to have to tell you, I'm actually a person who has always loved that personally. That's my subjective opinion on that. I enjoy a nice, repeatable, secure QD method for my silencers. And the reason I enjoy that, I like to be able to travel with the shortest configuration and like in a bag in my truck or whatever. And when I get to where I'm going, I can put it all together and go to town. I like that. I enjoy that. Also, I enjoy being able to swap the silencer easily to a different gun if I happen to be doing that. I'm not saying you shouldn't have dedicated silencers for your guns, because you probably should, but sometimes, if I happen to be doing that, I like to be able to do it. With the amount of silencers I have available to me, I rarely need to. But with the amount of crazy silencer technology and the data we have at pewscience.com, with the amount of data we have access to, guys, I know when it might be a really good idea just to bring one can. And if I only have to bring one silencer with me, that's one less thing to carry. And it really depends. Bottom line here is I do enjoy a QD solution, a really good one. I always have. I'm not saying that I don't like direct thread. I'm just saying I do enjoy a good QD solution. A well-engineered QD solution is really fun too. Now, and so to be clear, I'm answering your question, yes, sir. And so I've given you 2 reasons why I think the answer is yes. Let me give you a 3rd reason why I think the answer is yes, that I think silencer mounts are going to continue to be a thing. 3rd reason is, and this is more technical, I think that sometimes mounts are really important for early time blast load dynamics in a silencer. And with the caveat that that's so long as there's companies doing purposeful complete system engineering. Okay, and there's a fine line, and those people or companies, they're probably going to want to keep engineering muzzle device designs to keep the performance of their systems optimized. That's my guess. Now, a lot of these companies, they don't care. They're relying on Rearden or whoever to make a mount. And they're like, oh, we're just going to sell it hub. We're just going to let the consumer decide what they want. And almost every company's doing that. And some of them aren't. Why? Well, then we talked about that before. There's a lot of reasons why. But some companies choose certain paths. Some companies choose others. I'm not saying which one is right or wrong. I'm just telling you that many companies do things differently. Many companies do things the same. So, again, my answer is yes, that I do think silencer mounts are going to continue to be a thing because literally all companies are using them. 4th reason is, what about things that aren't rifles? Right? What about things that aren't rifles? What about pistols and subguns and things? And I know who asked this question. Dude, I know you're a rifle guy. It's okay if you're a rifle guy. It's because you're not really a silencer guy. And don't take offense to that. But you're a rifle guy. Wait until you shoot some of the stuff we've been testing recently. You're going to lose your mind, bro. And next thing you know, you're going to be buying pistols and thinking you're James Bond. And what do you think? Like, you think pistols don't need silencer mounts? You know what I mean, dude? There's always going to be silencer mounts, so don't worry about that. Right? I hope that answers your question, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar. Thank you. That's actually a great question, and a lot of people probably didn't even know some of that stuff, so that's awesome. What are we, questions 506? Hold on, I'm going to pause this. I need like another bottle of water. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Okay, that's better. Okay, question 506. Sub-question 4. Man, I can't believe we're on question 4. Let me see. Oh, man, my screen is like, make sure I can see it. He's going to make everything close, and he's going to lose the episode. Question 4. Would you expect the 6.5 Creedmoor to perform better with the Hyperion or the Cat JL bolt gun? Okay, so this later gentleman is asking, if we move from 308 to 6.5 Creedmoor, would you get better performance with the Hyperion or a Cat JL on a bolt gun? And it's a good question, so thank you for asking that. And as far as overall sound field severity goes with 308, those two silencers are pretty much neck and neck, right? Oh man, I'm gonna sneeze. Oh man, man, I'm so sorry, guys. Those two silencers are neck and neck, and the JL is shorter, right? That's true, right? So that's pretty interesting when you kind of look at how the sound field is shaped, and how the shooter's ear performance is too. Interesting, different technologies in those two silencers doing different things. Very interesting. When you move to 6.5 Creedmoor with a bolt action, you probably have a different shock load coming off of the projectile and a different type of flow out of the muzzle. And I bet you get a little quieter on both. I'm not sure either one has a huge advantage over the other with regard to sound field. I would expect they would be relatively similar. I would think that, sir, if you're asking this from a purely technical standpoint, that's my answer. If you're asking this from like a purchase standpoint or something, like what you're looking for, so, well, I'm going to tell you right now, I mean, that Cat JL, you can get it in hub flavor or QD flavor. So, the versatility could be different. And the Hyperion is just a little bit different silencer. So I think, I don't know, I'm not going to tell you what to buy, but, just look at you might want to, because they're so close in performance, you might want to look at some features that, and the length and things like that, just depending on what you need, because you might have different requirements. So I hope that helps. Thank you for the question. I'm sorry I don't have like a definitive answer for you, because honestly, like I don't know without doing the testing. We do have a 6.5 Creedmoor Hyperion test on the website, but that host is non-standard and it's a longer barrel, so it's not really going to help you. Okay. Question 507, sub-question 5. I have what I think is tennis elbow now at 35 years old when I do pull-ups. Will a new Knight's Armament can help? Yeah, bro, look, go ahead and let your wife know you need a new CRS PRT. No, just kidding. Maybe only half kidding, though. No, by the way, just so you guys know, and I'm just going to tell you this because I'm a silencer guy and this is what I do. I'm literally buying an original NT4 and an NT4 PRG purge from Knights, just for my own personal curiosity to test. We've already tested the NT4. Remember, Lucas loaned his NT4 to us to test. That's on the website. That was cool. But the reason I'm buying these other two, I actually loved shooting the CRS PRT. I love that so much, and I love the mount. And I was like, okay, I gave those PRT silencers back to the dealer who loaned them. So shout out to SK Arms for that. That was awesome. So now what I'm going to do in my little Knights side quest here is I'm going to mess with the new NT4. I'm going to keep that old NT4, that old NT4 that I'm buying. If I like the new NT4, I'm going to keep it too for posterity. And the fact it uses the same mount as the old NT4, I think that's cool. It's totally like, these are not normal silencers. It's just one of those things. Like, I want to play with, it's like, I get to have fun too, right? Like, they're not a client. I get to say I like them. That way, like, no one accuses me of like bias, right? Isn't that like, I don't know. It's very rare I get to publicly talk about something I like without getting in trouble. So please let me have this moment. Okay. I yearn for the days that I can just tell you guys what I like, but I'm simply not allowed to because people get really angry. So in this case, I can tell you because Knights is not a client. So you see how it's like freeing for me. I'm like, oh my God, I get to tell you how cool I think these silencers are. And I think a lot of silencers are cool, but I can't tell you. I think that because people get mad. So something else I bought was a 3D printed Inconel triple tap. It's so expensive. I always wanted a triple tap. I never got one. And so I figured now's my chance, dude. Now's my chance. And YOLO, right? You only live once, man. So I'm like, I'm going to spend my lunch money. I'm saving my pennies. I'm going to spend my lunch money. Also, if I can, there is some method to this madness. Also, I kind of want to test the NT4 PRG with both mounts. With the triple tap and the regular mount, and say, I just want to see what happens. I'm like, oh my God, what if it does something different? Like, I want to know. Just like I did with the MAMs that the guys loaned me, right? It seems like a good idea. And for the silencer history alone, right? To do all of that, right? We have the most night silencer data in the world now, published. And why not get more, dude? So to your question, yes, it will make your elbow feel better. And you know why it's going to make your elbow feel better? They're heavy silencers. You're going to have to be strong to use them. You're going to have to do those reps. No, but you know what? But seriously, you know what sucks? I don't know if this is going to happen to me, but I've been seeing some rumblings from a couple different people that the new triple tap doesn't fit inside like the NT4 well, and it's like a little too big. Remember that one time we tested the first QDC night scans, not the QDC PRTs, but the QDC, like the first generation QDCs. Remember, and that a different gentleman had loaned me his MAMs, and I could not test the original 556 QDC with the MAMs because it didn't fit. And the guy told me, he's like, you should have just shoved it on there. And I was like, I was not going to break your silencer or that mount. Like, I was not going to mess that up. I would feel so bad if I had broken it. So when I saw that people were like, their 3D printed Inconel triple taps weren't fitting in the silencers, I was like, oh man, I hope that doesn't happen to me. I'm going to try it anyway. Question 508, sub-question 6. Can a leaky AR-15 gas block ever get as bad as the WarComp gas leak in DRC? Oh, what a gentleman. He used DRC. So what this gentleman is asking, can a leaky AR-15 gas block ever approach the hearing damage risk potential of a WarComp gas leak? He used the term DRC, that's damage risk criterion. That's what the suppression rating is. He's saying is that he's noticed in our research that we've shown that the shock loads generated from the WarComp mount leak on Surefire silencers will in fact lower the suppression rating of the shooter's ear, thus increasing the postulated hearing damage risk potential to the operator. It's more dangerous to use WarComp physically. And he's asking, well, if your gas block leaks, could that do the same thing? The humanity. And it's a good question. I've actually been thinking about that for years. I mean, not the exact question you're asking, sir, but I have been wondering what kind of increased severity we could really get. Like, what could the extent be? Like, how bad could it get? I have been wondering about that. Like, in the back of my mind, you know what I mean? Like, forever. And it would be a cool test to perform. One thing I think that helps to bound this case for us is piston guns. Like, in general, right? Like, I don't think you're ever going to get more severe than a purposeful block vent. Yes? Like, whether that's a SCAR or a 416, or maybe like on the direct impingement, let's use the direct impingement example, a superlative arms block in the vented configuration for instance. I think if you're leaking heavily with a standard DI gas block, I'm not sure your jet's going to have the same momentum as some of those other things. You're probably going to be bounded by them on the upper end. That is one of my guesses. That could be wrong. I don't know. But I would guess, wouldn't you guess that you would probably be bounded on the upper end by a SCAR or a 416? Because those vents are like right out of the piston housing. or like a vented superlative arms block, I think we're going to have to do that. We're going to have to tune a gun with the restricted mode with the superlative arms and bleed off. Now I remember. Now I remember why I didn't do that test. And it was probably a stupid reason. I was about to do that test one time. I was like, well, no, I'm not going to be able to tune it to the same kinematics because the impulse curve is going to be a different shape if I tune for vented versus tune restricted. And we've talked about that before. So I'm just not going to do it because the suppression rate in the shooter's ear is going to be not really comparable in the way I want it to be. And really, that was not the way to look at that. The right way to look at that was probably a pure physics perspective. And I probably should have just looked at the muzzle waveforms to see the gas leak. And now that I think about it, we should do that test. And we might just need to back it out and do some discrete analysis. And that's what we could. We could actually separate the waveform and look at it in component space, not publish it because I think it's irresponsible because you use the number. But we could do some internal analysis to really understand severity of certain regimes, map it, and then give you a definitive conclusion. But we couldn't give you everything because people would use it and it would be dangerous. I just thought that was all me thinking out loud just now. So sorry if that was weird. No, good question. Yeah, we need to test some leaky systems. So remind me, okay? Okay, cool. No, great question. Okay, let's do. How many are we gonna do? Let's do more, dude. We're not done. What are we, an hour in? All I had to do is finish this Gemtech article for you, dude. We're totally fine. We're totally not gonna pass out. Question 509, subquestion 7. With respect to hearing damage, how loud are you listening to music at the gym? Oh, man. It's a great question. This is something that I think a lot of people don't think about, and I'm glad you asked it. This actually touches on a huge technical factor that a lot of people don't think about at all with regard to loudness. When you listen to music with headphones, or in your car, or in your house, or maybe if you're like just using a lawnmower, or you're using a leaf blower, or whatever you're doing, what does that actually do? What are you doing? You're subjecting your ears to steady state noise, right? Yeah. Constant noise. It's not blast pressure, is it? No, it's not an impulsive load. It's a steady state load. Yeah. So during steady state noise, your ears are constantly being exercised, constantly being loaded, right? So when you load something statically, you don't get to take advantage of the momentary loading, right? So the load's there. If you can't resist it, you're going to fail. Constant noise is something that it will most certainly damage your hearing over time, and the threshold is lower. And you can take a lower sound pressure for a long period of time than you can for a short amount of time. Wait. Let me say that a different way. You can take a momentary 130 dB load much more easily than you could take a constant 130 dB load. Does that make sense? Yes, it should make sense. Okay. So to answer your question specifically, I try to listen to my headphones as low a volume as is acceptable for me to be content with the music playing and hear it and stuff. I use noise canceling earbuds at the gym, just like a lot of you do, and I like it when they don't have the gym music blasting, so I don't have to crank mine up to compensate. I like that, right? Because it depends what's going on where you are. You can't control your environment sometimes. So if I really need to get psyched up for a deadlift or something, I might turn it up louder than normal. I think we've all done that too. So it's give and take, and it's an area where I think I could probably improve personally. This is a personal thing. It's a very personal question. But if you're looking at protecting your hearing, remain cognizant of long duration, steady state noise, whether that be for, you listening to music in your car, or your house, or your headphones, or mowing your lawn, or whatever. If you're like, let's say you're cutting wood with a circular saw in your garage, you probably want to wear hearing protection, guys. It's loud, man. All right. Again, we're going to do suppression rating of common household things, so you'll understand context. impulsive noise, like, using a nail gun on your deck. You know what I mean? Okay, I hope that helps. Good question. Somewhat silencer related. Question 510, subquestion 8. Please explain what makes Glocks bad suppressor hosts. And even without a can, why you prefer others. Oh, you're gonna make the Glock people hate me. That's okay. It's an excellent and very timely question. More than you know. And actually, you asked 2 questions, right? So, okay. Your first question, explain what makes Glocks bad suppressor hosts. Your second question, why do you prefer other pistols even without a silencer? Okay, well, let's go one by one. First question, what makes a Glock less than optimal for being a silencer host? Because that's what I think you're really asking. I wouldn't say they're bad. I think they're less than optimal. It's the lock time, quite simply. And before you get upset, the reason the lock time matters, it's not necessarily the fault of the Glock. So don't get it twisted. First of all, Glocks cycle easily because they're meant to be very reliable with a variety of ammunition, and they're one of the most reliable firearms you can use. I don't think anyone's going to disagree. And guess what? Pistol silencer technology has not changed that much in several decades. That's a fact. Hasn't changed a lot since Knight's Armament made the Mark 23 silencer. Right? And I'm sorry to say that, guys, but that's true. And if that upsets you, please go start a silencer company and innovate. Okay? Don't cry to me. Go do it. Because pistol silencer technology has been relatively stagnant for a very long time. And the back pressure of most pistol silencers on a Glock will make ejection port blast ramp up, and it will make the shooter have a bad time. And it also will spit things back into your face. Okay, this is a hot topic continuously, that people that don't understand pistol silencers and they buy a pistol silencer for their pistol and they start shooting it. Yes, that happens. And it's not only the case with the Glock family, guys. It's not only the case with that, but the Glock type of action dynamics can exacerbate that type of phenomena with most pistol silencers. Now, we have tested some things that behave much differently. Maybe the Glock won't be so bad after all. Maybe it won't be so bad after all. Maybe you should stay tuned to find out. Maybe that's a hint. Maybe you stay tuned for some Pew Science. Maybe we give you some data. Maybe we don't. No, we will. Your second question, on to the second part. Like you're saying, like asking, why do I prefer other pistols to Glock, like without a silencer? Like why? Like you're asking for like me to justify my subjective opinion, right? Well, first of all, I'm always going to use a silencer if I have a choice. So that's one. Secondly, I do carry a gun daily. Oftentimes I do not have a silencer with me. Okay, well, your question is important. If you care about what I think, and I want to tell you, I actually don't like I don't like shooting Glocks. I don't like shooting them as much as I like shooting some other pistols. I don't like the way the Glock feels. I don't like the way the trigger feels. I don't like the angle of the grip. I find it to be a little uncomfortable. And that's why. And I have carried a Glock. And I carried a Glock 19 for years. I carried an HKP7 for years. I carried a SIG P226 for years. I think I largely prefer hammer-fire pistols. I like double-action, single-action type pistols. I always have. It's what I learned to shoot on. It's a personal preference for me. I mean, would I carry a Glock again or shoot them? Yes, absolutely. Are they my favorite? No, not really. I think I'm allowed to like what I like. I think I've earned that. And I'll say cost is not a factor for me in pistol purchasing. In almost all cases, besides transferable machine guns, I'm not talking about all cases, but in almost all cases, ammo dwarfs the cost of a gun. Yes? So my vote is buy what you like and what you're comfortable shooting. Like, I like the Mark 23. Is it as practical as a Glock? Absolutely not. Is it cooler in like every conceivable way? Yes. Yes, the Mark 23 is cooler than a Glock in every conceivable way. And nobody on the planet is going to argue with that. And if they do, they're not cool. Okay. And with that, we're going to go ahead and highlight that row. And we're going to end listener questions for this episode. And we'll return to our spreadsheet next time we do the segment. Okay, we're going to save it. And we're closing it. That I've alienated 2/3 of the gun community that love Glocks. No, that was fun. I do think I think this is going to be a great solicitation to go through continuously. Those are great questions so far. Thank you so much for asking them. And don't worry, if you ask a question and we didn't get to it this time, we're certainly going to keep on trucking through these. And periodically, the segment will come up on the podcast. We're going to take a dive into the spreadsheet again, and we're going to answer more. Okay, so that's how we've been running this. Okay, so thanks again for listening. It's about an hour and 15 minutes now. That means we had 10 minutes of ads, an intro, and so that's a good solid hour for you. That's good. So please check out today's Gemtech Neutron data and analysis, and please have a great rest of your week. We're going to be back next week to speak technically about the Neutron performance, explore just what makes it tick, and man, there's other stuff coming too, guys. There's so much really cool information for you that's going to be coming. So I'd please encourage you to stick around. Thanks again for listening, and please stay safe. I will talk with you folks again soon. All right, bye.